So Lulu, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership. But before we go into leadership, can you tell us a little bit more about your own background? Where did you grow up?
Thanks, Nick. Thanks for the opportunity to talk to you. I grew up in KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa.
Right.
In a small rural village called Kromhoek.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I grew up, and that's where I was raised, and that's where I went to school, primary school, and then for high school I went to, still in the Eastern Cape, but in Umtata and in Flagstaff.
Right.
And then from there went to university.
And what was your dream career as you grew up?
When I grew up, I dreamt of being a doctor, a medical doctor. I think
Right.
the primary reason for that is because when I grew up, my mother was very sickly.
Mm-hmm.
And she was hospitalized quite a lot, had many operations, had a heart problem. And so when we went to visit her in hospital, I would hear the loudspeaker calling doctors, doctor by name, Dr. So-and-so, Dr. So-and-so. And I kind of thought, well, it would sound right, you know. It could sound very nice if instead of saying Dr. Nick, they would be saying Dr. Gwagwa, Dr. Gwagwa, call for you, please. And I thought, I like this. And also in the process, I would also be looking after my mom. So that's what I grew up wanting to be, but it was not to be. Because when I was doing my grade 11, which was Form 4 at the time,
Right.
we didn't have a maths teacher in our school. And so my father was a school principal, a primary school principal. So when it came to June holidays, which is 6 months into the year, and we didn't have a maths teacher, he simply said, you are going to shift to geography. And so there went my medical profession.
Right.
And so I went into geography, and that's what actually took me to town planning, which I ended up being. And actually I'm glad that it actually turned out that way. And by the way, I did marry a medical doctor in the end.
Ah, good.
So I did end up with medicine in my family after all.
Right. And Lulu, who inspired you in your early days?
In my early days, it was my paternal grandmother who worked as a domestic worker in Durban. And the reason why I was inspired by her is because I understand my paternal grandfather died quite early on, and my father and siblings were still young. And completely out of the norm in the village, she decided to actually pack and go and go and look for a job in Durban so that she could at the time take her children to school. Now that was unheard of a rural woman who's just gonna leave children and just go and work in Durban, still in her morning clothes, which is the black clothes. But she did that, and that decision and that courage actually changed the course of our family. Because of that decision and that courage, my father ended up being a teacher. My uncle ended up being a teacher. The other one a policeman. My aunt ended up being a teacher. So we ended up in a family that understood the value of education, just because of that one woman who just was courageous and determined.
Where did you start your career?
In terms of working, I started working as a town planner in Umtata, which was the former Transkei at the time. And I went in there, having completed my town planning degree at the University of Natal. I went to work in the former Transkei because that was the only avenue that was available. That was 1982, because obviously I was black, and therefore I belonged to the homelands at the time. So I worked in Umtata as a town planner there. And I was the first town planner actually in the department, or in the Transkei, in South Africa for that matter.
And I believe you went all the way to become Director General?
No, actually, from Umtata, I then went to work at the University of Natal for an NGO that was focusing on housing concerns at the time. And then from there, I went back to university. I went abroad. And then I came back and I taught at the University of Natal. I was a senior lecturer there. And then left in 94 to come and work in the National Department of Public Works. And then I became the Deputy Director General in the department. So I was never a Director General, as a Deputy Director General. And then from there I left to be the CEO of the Independent Development Trust, which is a public entity.
And today you have your own investment firm, Lereko.
It's actually something I never dreamed of. When I finished my first term at the RT 5 years on, and the board was persuading me to stay, I was very clear that I was just burnt out, literally. I had spent 10 years in the public sector, which is the post-South African independence public sector, which is the years I spent in the National Department of Public Works and the time that I spent at the RT. And I was completely burnt out. And I decided to take time out. So I took a year, which was 2004, to rest and recharge. And in the process of that, in 2005, I kind of came across Popo and Vali and Eric Malobi, who kind of persuaded me to join them. They were starting Lereko Investment. And I thought, okay, well, we'll give it a try. And I really didn't take it seriously because I never considered myself an entrepreneur or a business person. And as they say, the rest is history. I've been here from 2005 and I'm still here and I'm still going strong.
So Lulu, looking back over your career, would you say there was a major turning point?
I think there were two turning points in my career. I think the first turning point was that one of actually not having a maths teacher. So that actually got me into town planning, which is something I hadn't really planned. The second major turning point in my career was when I went to study at LSE. That I had not planned either. My then fiance had gone into exile in 1985, and I was having a bit of a rough time here with the security police. And the late Justice Pius Langa, the Chief Justice Pius Langa, organized a scholarship for me as a way of getting me out. So I went, I got the Mandela Scholarship, and I went to study at London School of Economics. So I didn't go into exile. So I went officially to go, but it was all very quickly organized. And that actually changed a lot about me, because when I studied at LSE, for the first time I kind of thought what I had been told previously when I was growing up, that I was intelligent. And then as I went to university, I doubted that. But when I got to LSE and there was no black woman, it was just myself amongst the many from different countries doing a master's program in this prestigious university. All of a sudden I came to my own, and I ended up getting a distinction there and got an award as the best student for the year, and the first for that award to have been awarded to somebody from a developing world. And I thought, this is it. And that just changed the way I viewed myself. My confidence levels came back to the confidence levels I'd had when I was at primary school. And that really changed. So everything else that I've done, I think it was a consequence of that gift that I got from the late Pius Langa, who really organized that scholarship for me and put me where I needed to be at the time.
And Lulu, what is driving you today?
What drives me today is making dreams come true for others, particularly young women, because I know what it is to be a young woman and having many decisions to make, and you're not sure. The world is not necessarily, not just South Africa, the world is not necessarily on the side of the young woman. So I have a daughter, and so I spend a lot of my time working with young women, supporting young women. I run a program which I call a Girls' Lunch with Dr. Lulu, which is essentially a mentoring program for young women. And at the moment I'm working towards working on expanding that and finding networks in the rest of the continent and working with other people who are interested in issues of young women. As this weekend I'm going to Namibia precisely for that reason. So that's something that really drives me at the moment, is how to make dreams come true, because I know what it is to dream. I dreamt as a young woman, and it was because of other people, as I said, like Justice Pius Langa, who made it possible for me. And so I want to also make it possible for others, because I consider myself to be in a privileged position now, both in terms of the networks that I have and also the things that I do in life, and also the family that I have. I'm able to do the things that I like to do and the things that I want to do.
Now, Lulu, let's talk about leadership. What does the future of leadership mean to you?
The future of leadership for me, more than anything else, it's going to be around integrity. I mean, there's a whole range of characteristics of leaders. But I think for me, when I look at what's happening in the world and what's happening in this country, and if I look at the leaders that I admire, I think at the center of it, over and above vision, courage, and all of those other things, resilience, and all of those other things, I think the issue of morality and integrity for me, it's going to be at the core, because the sustainability of this world is going to depend on the extent to which we make moral decisions, and as leaders, we hold ourselves, we take ourselves seriously, and we are people of integrity. I think for me this is becoming quite a big issue.
And Lulu, what have you learned from your own journey that you consider most important for building future leaders?
I think there are two things around it for me. One is education. I think education, there is no substitute for education. In saying that, I'm not suggesting that there aren't leaders who are not educated. I've just come from I come from a rural village. This weekend I spent the weekend, in fact a week, in my rural village there, and admiring women who are leaders in their own right there. But for purposes of impact and being able to deepen progress in the world, it's going to be around education. So I think that's the first thing. The second thing for me, it is going to be about women. Because I think, my own research, when I was doing my PhD, I looked at household economics. And not just myself, and that has been proven by other people who've done research. So this is not hearsay or emotional speak. This is based on scientific research, is that women, to a large extent, more than men, whatever income they have, they actually spend on the family as in the extended family, and they spend far less than men on things that satisfy themselves as individuals. So I think that, so I'm saying that if we really invest on women, both in terms of education and also in terms of giving women an opportunity to be in positions of leadership, so that they are able to take the decisions, because women are leading, but at community level, and it's not enough to do that, and in families they do, but it's not enough. We need to put more women in positions that they can take far wider decisions that can impact on society as a whole. And I think if we did that, in saying that, I am not suggesting that it's about saying men must now not lead. I'm saying that we've got a whole society out there, half of the population, as most people say, that we are not leveraging on, and they do have, by their very nature, they do have real concern for society. As I say, I'm a mother of two, and I have a real concern about what happens to my children. I'm not suggesting my husband doesn't, he does, but I've got a specific concern about the future of this world as a mother. So I really, really believe that education and women, for me, if you combine those two, you've got a long way to go in terms of ensuring sustainability of this world. Even if you looked at issues of climate change, whichever issue you looked at, and if you brought those two together, got a long way to go. Women in rural areas, they go out, they fetch water, they fetch firewood, but they know what to do and not what to do when they're out there. And I've been there, where you collect wood and you fetch water, and you know what to do and how to preserve that. But if you added education to it, as we're doing all of that work, we've got a long way to go. I mean, we would go far as a society.
Now, Lulu, when you speak to young leaders, to aspiring leaders, what is it you tell them they should focus on for future-proofing their career?
Education. You'll hear this word from me over and over again. Education. And also being prepared to start from the bottom. I think one of the key issues for young people, and it's got a lot to do, those are the unintended consequences of technology and also social media, is that it's all very instant. So there's this idea that you're going to finish at university, you're going to come into your first job, you're going to be a manager, and you in a year or two, you're feeling like people are standing on your way. But in reality, it doesn't work that way. There's certain things at university you learn the technical issues. You learn to think, basically. You learn to analyze, but they don't teach you how to do. That you learn when, even as a town planner, I'm a town planner, I learned how to design, I learned how to think about socio-economic development. But until I was there with a pen and paper and I had to design a township, it's a completely different story when it's theoretical, when it's real. The people in Diepsloot, in a squatter settlement, I've got to design now and think about how to bring in services. It's something that you're not quite taught until you are on the ground. So I'm saying one of the key things is to learn to focus on the basics first. Without the basics, you are not able to manage anybody. As a town planner now, I've served as a deputy chair of the Planning Commission in the Eastern Cape. Nobody can put wool over my eyes because I have done basic development control. I've started there. I might be where I am now, but I started there. So when I manage a team, I know both how to design a township, I know how to do development control, but I've gone with that to see how do I make decisions now at a national scale that would impact on that. But without having done that, you just think you can just go in, which is what young people. So I say education, know yourself, continuously improve yourself, be prepared to start from scratch. And last but not least, you'll hear this other word from me: integrity, integrity, integrity. There is no shortcut because people lose their integrity because they're looking for shortcuts. And in the world, there's no shortcuts. Everything comes back to you in the end, as we can see now with the Zondo Commission. People went fast, became billionaires, but 5 years later, it's all come back and it's rolling back. So integrity, there isn't anything that can substitute education, starting from the bottom, and integrity, and being prepared to learn.
Now, Lulu, you touched on technology. What would you say are the technologies, or maybe the tools of technology, that you envisage will drive the leadership of the future?
That's a very, very difficult question for me to answer. Not being a technology person, I actually don't know. I think one of the key things about leadership and technology, it's about how do we deal with data. I mean, we are inundated with data, and as decision makers, we need that data in order to make decisions, and how to analyze the big data, how to deal with big data in a way that can help us to make the right decisions. I think that's probably, for me, at least from where I'm sitting, in terms of my own field, it's about how to make the better use of data that's out there which technology can help us with.
When it comes to social media, Lulu, what do you tell young leaders and maybe even your children? How should they go about navigating social media?
Social media is like writing your own book. You are writing your own memoirs because it's there. It's not going to go away. I think it's about thinking before you write, thinking about you before you press that and say, if 20 years from now, my manager or my prospective employer would see this post, would they employ me? If my children saw this post 20 years from now, what do they think about me as their mother or their father? If you want to be a president, for example, you want to go into the political sphere, if the opposition, as I'm vying for this position of being a president, or the leader of a political party got hold of this post, would they use this post against me? That I say to my children, what I call the Sunday Times test, which I say, if this thing that I'm doing or I'm writing was in the Sunday Times headlines, how would I feel? So I always talk to my children about the Sunday Times test.
The Sunday Times test.
Sunday Times test, it is.
And tell us, Lulu, as a mentor to future leaders, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored somebody and that person took your advice to heart?
There's plenty of them. I think that again, the mentoring has been mainly around helping people navigate their careers and navigate their education and how to focus on their education and what to do or not to do. And as a consequence of that, I mean, I've got a number of young people that are in positions of power or important positions that I have supported through either mentoring or just pointing in the right direction, because it's all about pointing people in the right direction and also providing additional information. And sometimes just asking the question, because sometimes the person actually knows deep down what they want, but they just don't have the courage to take it on. And to face some of the challenges by just asking a few questions, which then pushes the person into another level. For example, in the group that I'm working, these young women I'm talking about, this young woman, I work with a group between 21 and 35. So this young woman who's about 20, same age as my son, I think, so he's 26. Last year, she came into her first lunch. We call them lunches. And she came in all sitting there quiet. And when we were asking everybody to check in, she said, I'm so-and-so, I have a terminal disease, so really I don't have any ambitions. Just out of sitting around that room, everybody said, well, terminal illness. What do you mean by terminal illness? We are all terminal, actually. And when we drive out of here, one of us might be knocked out by a car. So you're not going to come here and tell us about your terminal illness. It's either you want to have a future and you're going to fight for it, or you're going to sit here and use terminal illness as an excuse. So by providing that platform with other young people, they just went for her in a young person way. And the following lunch, she came, she said, guess what? I've started a business and I am now doing my legal, I'm progressing with my legal studies. All things that I actually said, there's no point in doing all of these because I'm a terminal illness. So each time, in fact, I'm seeing her tomorrow afternoon at 5. Of that group, she's the one who's progressed most out of that group of about 40 young women that have been dealing with for the last 2 years, who walked into the room like quiet and speaking like very softly because she was like, I'm dead. And since then, if she walked in here, she walks straight and she's confident because she now says, well, let me use the best of the time that I have, like everybody else. All of us, we don't know how much time we have in the world. So if we all sat and we said, well, we're dying, we're not sure when, I mean, we wouldn't be studying. You and I wouldn't be talking here because we don't know what's going to happen. So as I say, it is just things like that. Sometimes it's just creating a platform for people to just get them out of their own shell, more than that you sit down and say, this is how you design X, Y, Z. You know.
Now, Lulu, are there any role models of leadership that you feel future leaders should study and maybe learn from?
I think, I mean, for me, there are a number of leaders, obviously, that I don't want to say normal that everybody know. I mean, the Nelson Mandelas, the Gandhis, and all of that, the Obamas. But I think there are a number of women leaders, I think, that we want to also look at. People like Michelle Obama, who hasn't held any position per se, but has used the platform that she had at the time to really make a big impact in the world, particularly also to women out there. So I've got a lot of respect for somebody like that. There's Zanele Mbeki, the wife of the former president Mbeki. Again, not held a specific position, but she has used where she's at to really do a lot of work, working with women, working on the ground without necessarily having to sit and shout from any platform. So I've got a lot of time for people like that, which I think we should also study more. And because what that does, it just shows us that you don't necessarily have to have a, inverted commas, powerful position to make an impact. You are a leader where you are. Look at the platform that you've got and say, what can I do to make an impact in society from where I'm sitting?
Now, Lulu, where can our listeners follow you and how should they connect with you?
They connect with me on my website, which is www.lulugwagwa.co.za, or at our Twitter handle is at Girls Lunch, same with the Instagram and also the Facebook page, which is at Girls Lunch.
At Girls Lunch?
Yes.
And last but not least, Lulu, is there one piece of advice that you would really like to convey to future leaders that they should take to heart and implement in their own leadership?
I think for me, it's choice, but not chance will determine your destiny. It's choice. Leadership is about choice. And we're in a leadership position and you're wanting to make an impact. It is about choices you make. It's not by chance. Just because some people in the street have voted you in, you think now you are a leader because you've mobilized. It's about conscious choices that you make, considered decisions that you make. And I'm really appealing on leaders out there, particularly in this continent, to really take considered choices for the future of this continent.
Well, Lulu, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your insights and for helping us build a better world and reminding us that integrity and education are at the heart of everything.
Yeah, thanks very much, Nick.